I would like to strike the minimum amount of such bond shall be $300,000 and 230, line 230.
Line 230. Mr. Commissioner, you good with that? Okay, you have that, and then we're going to strike that out. Okay. We have a second. All in favor of? Well, is there any further discussion? Yeah, okay, wait, we got.
I'm uncomfortable with no floor. Give me a floor.
Well, there, if you will look at line 228, there is a floor already established. So look, start at line 227. The bond shall be in such amount as the commissioner may determine, not exceeding an amount equal to 2% of the amount of hemp purchased from the hemp grower licensed by the permittee in the most recent calendar year. So there are some parameters already there.
So we don't know what the minimum is, but there is a 2% minimum based upon prior year's sales. Is that right?
That's correct. And the commissioner would maintain authority to determine the amounts.
Thank you.
Okay.
So, Mr. Chairman, anything we would do would be done through rules and regs.
You want to come, Mr. Commissioner, you want to come up here where you can be recorded for posterity? It is.
So, on the bond, well, on any of the fee structure, and if we need to have further discussion about what those tiers should be, we are open to having that conversation. I will say, though, any of that would have to be done through rule and reg, which is a public process through the Department of Agriculture, correct? And so those would be established in our rules and regs, which would be laid out through a public process, which requires a public hearing, which requires public input. No different than the process we have here. It's just done through an administrative process versus a legislative process. And so those fee structures would be determined that way. That said, I was just informed by our attorney on the fee structure on the bond. If there's room for conversation on what that looks like, there may be concern about whether or not a surety may be willing to be involved if it's set too low. And so if we leave it open-ended at such a lower amount, that it may cause a concern for us being able to have a surety that would be willing to do that. So there probably does need to be a floor of some sort. We'll leave that. That's a legislative decision, right? But okay. But we could obviously huddle and be willing to provide some feedback on what that.
I'm going to interject just for a minute, Mr. Commissioner. What would be a bottom number that you think y'all would be comfortable with?
Can I?
Yes, please.
Can I get with my attorney?
May I just make a suggestion?
Sure, go ahead,
Would
Senator.
you consider $50,000 as a bond?
I think that would be a reasonable starting point, Mr. Chairman, and if we can follow back up, we would be willing to do that.
Okay, good deal. Senator Walker.
So my understanding, Commissioner, is the bond is to protect the grower.
The bond is to protect the grower.
So you don't want a buyer to abscond with his crop.
That's
not
correct.
Paying.
It's no different than the bond law we have in many other commodities.
Mr. Dunn testified that it's a real barrier to entry, and that you can't hardly find anybody to write a bond for this. I'd be okay with eliminating the bond requirement altogether, or just setting a $100,000 bond amount, 300. I mean, if that's preventing Georgia processing and Georgia this industry to
Yes, sir.
get off the ground, this is just protecting the grower from fraud.
That's correct.
It doesn't have anything to do with the safety of the public or the purity of the product on the shelf. There are other ways for a grower to ensure payment. I mean, they could require you know, irrevocable letter of credit from a bank, or I'm not a farmer, but we don't require bonds for the corn grower selling to, well, maybe we do.
Yeah, there is a grain dealer bond, yes, sir.
But if this, I just wonder how big a barrier this really is to this really nascent type industry.
Understood. I think to your point, Mr. Chairman, I think when we originally wrote the bill years ago, considering that it was an agricultural commodity and considering that we have bond laws in relation to those ag commodities, I think that was the thought process, was making it similar to how we've addressed other commodities, correct? However, you know, this is a legislative decision, and at the department, we're open to having that conversation on how we can best address it to ensure that this industry can thrive in our state. Because right now, as has been pointed out in this committee hearing today, I think you've heard, it's been hampered significantly, and at the department, we're committed to ensuring our hemp industry in our state can be successful. So anything that we see or perceive as those barriers, we're willing to find ways to help address those. And if that's part of that conversation, Mr. Chairman, we're more than willing to work with you and Senator Jackson and others to help to fix that and address that in the best way possible. You know, if that's amending this in the committee today to whatever is the will of the committee to get us to that point, and then working on language moving forward. I don't know, Mr. Chairman, if you have another committee meeting scheduled between now and whenever
We'll probably have one
you're
Thursday.
required to get legislation out, but we're willing to work with y'all to get it to where the committee's comfortable. I think what I've heard in listening today, I think everybody understands the issue we're trying to address. And I think you see that industry is supportive of us addressing those issues as an agency, but we also want to ensure we're doing it in the most effective, most efficient way possible.
And I wanted to ask a question, Mr. Commissioner. Isn't it true that anyone, say the co-op that I'm a member of, we have to have a license with the Department of Agriculture to be able to sell our blueberries? Is
That's
that not
correct.
Okay, are we required to have a bond?
I would have to follow up with my attorney on that.
Our co-op, is it required to have a bond? I should know the answer to that myself, but
Can we follow up with you on
We
that?
can, we can.
Because the bond law it doesn't apply to everything, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So let me follow up with them, and I'll follow up with you on that
Okay.
answer,
You-
if that's okay.
that sounds good.
So it's pretty vast, but at the same time, it doesn't apply to every commodity sold in the state.
All right, good deal. All right, okay. Okay, go ahead, Senator Jackson.
All right, so I'm going to move that we amend line 230 to say, by striking $300,000 and replacing it with $50,000. Only change I'm making.
Okay. And so if we move forward on that amendment today, and we find out later that the commissioner and his folks have reached out to to the bond companies, that we need to amend this on the floor, because it can't, I would hope that we could have some support with that from our
Absolutely.
committee. Okay. All righty. So we have a motion. Help me out here, Rachel. We had a motion to. Yeah.
I believe we had an amendment on the floor. I asked the senator to withdraw that amendment and propose to do it.
Yes.
Okay. I think she did withdraw the amendment.
I respectfully request the chairman's permission to withdraw my original
Okay.
amendment that established no floor.
I thought you did that.
Thank you, Mr.
a minute ago,
Chairman.
But yes, go ahead.
And now, if we would please consider my motion to amend 300,000 to 50,000.
All right.
Thank you.
All right. Did you want to speak? Okay.
I just want to say, in the spirit of working with the Ag Commissioner, obviously this line that we're amending was already codified. That's not part of the new bill. I think if we're going to go back and look at this, and we have the commitment from the committee, I don't really see a need to amend this right now. I mean, there's a reason why this number was set, and I just don't think it's responsible to do it on the fly without getting the background. So I would propose, I mean, no offense to the senator, I would just like to move, I'm going to speak against the amendment. I'm not going to support this particular amendment, but would also say I will be in favor of changing it at a later date if we find out information that justifies it.
Okay, all right, good deal. Good Lord, you gotta love hemp bills, don't you? So you've proposed 2 amendments. We voted on the first one, right? Okay. The second amendment. Any further discussion on the second amendment that you propose? No. Okay. All those in favor, raise your hands. All those against? All righty. You got it recorded, Rachel? All right, now we have a vote on the underlining bill as amended. Make a motion to pass. Second? Huh? Do what? Okay. All right, now on the passage as amended. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Y'all help me keep it. Has amended, right, has amended by committee. Let me tell y'all something. I love hemp legislation. Good Lord. Well, listen, golly, well, thank y'all for coming. We had another bill. We'll probably have another meeting Thursday to hear a bill from the majority leader. Thank y'all for all your input, and thanks for helping us get it passed.